Good afternoon, class. So today we are going to discuss tests, or specifically the teacher-made tests. And these are the things that we are going to discuss this morning. We have tests, or the definition of tests, the function of tests, and the next is the qualities of a good test instrument. So this one we are going to discuss the reliability, the validity of a test, and so on and so forth. And then we also discuss the ethics of assessment, and lastly, the other non-test assessment. So at the end of the discussion, each of you are expected to discuss teacher-made tests, state the non-test alternative assessment, and number three, explain the qualities of good test instrument. We all know, class, that test is very important in the learning process because it helps the teacher to measure the student progress, and of course it also helps the teacher to monitor the performance of the student. So now let's define the word test, or what is test. So from the definition, class, we have here: it is used to describe a systematic procedure for obtaining a sample of student behavior. It is a sample of behavior, products, answers, or performance from the domain. So according to Anastasia, class, test is a deliberate attempt by people to acquire information about themselves or others. So, meaning to say, class, that the output or the result of the test, it tells who you are or what kind of student you are. We have here the three basic concept and understanding tests. So number one, a test focuses on a particular domain. So in our previous discussion, we already discussed the domain. So domain is a test of a particular body of knowledge, skills, abilities, or performance. We have the three kinds of domain: the affective domain, the cognitive domain, and then the psychomotor. And the number two, a test is a sample of behavior, answers, or performance from the domain. So it is a sample because uh, it only measures the part of only part of the larger domain of interest, because you teacher, we cannot ask everything about a certain topic to our students. So what we are going to do is just we are going to pick up those important information. Okay, that's why it is called as a sample. And number three, a test is made of items, of course. So we have here the selection type of test or supply types of test. Selection is there's multiple choice, true or false, or like that. And then for the supply test, like fill in the blanks or essay. We need to have a test because tests provide information that are useful for improvement of instruction. Of course, from the result of the test, you we able to examine or to analyze if your instruction is really good or there is something improvement. Next is in making administrative decisions, and then lastly we have for guidance purposes. Yes, so from the result of the test, you able to be guided what kind of students you have. So now let's proceed to the qualities of good test instruments. So now the development of any kind of test DI have always required the careful consideration of the qualities of good measuring instrument, particularly for any test to be effectively developed, and it should carry the qualities of a good test. Number one, we have objectivity, refers to the degree to which personal judgment is eliminated in the scoring of the test. So, objectivity is the ability to see things without being influenced by personal feelings, emotions, or judgment. So, an objective assessment is based on evidence or facts. Like, for example, we have the subjective type of test, multiple choice, matching type, or true or false. So, from this class, since it is based on factual, so if your kind of test is like this, so it is high in the objectivity in your test. So the assessment that are considered objective have a right and wrong answer. Okay, so the more objective the test, the greater is its reliability. Or the things that we need to consider if your test are to consider in objectivity of your test. We have objectivity of items. Vagueness should be avoided. Item analysis. So later on, we are going to discuss more or thoroughly this item analysis. Then no leading and loaded questions. Next is we have objectivity of scoring. Answers for each item must be prepared. Definite marks should be allotted. So that's why class it is high in objectivity if the test is based on the fact of based on the facts. So if you are going to make a subjective type of test like essay, so make it sure class that you have your rubric so that and giving the scoring of this kind of test, so wala siya bias. Okay, if you are going to check the name of this kani ang answer of your student, for example kana naka-issue ani nga student, so wala kay bias matter or something nga emotions or feelings nga imo ning gamayon or dakuon. It's because you don't like or you like this kind of student because you based your scoring on the rubrics. Okay, number two, we have the reliability. So, refers to the consistency and accuracy of test results. So, in order for assessment to be sound, they must be free of biases and distortion. So, a good test should also be relatively reliable. As long as the quality of being measured has not changed, this means that any person should get about the same score each time they take the test. So, however, class, to be reliable, the test must be relatively objective because how you can obtain consistency among the scores you earn from one to time to the next if scorers are inconsistent. Okay, when you give or you don't have definite answer of your uh, you don't have definite answer of your question or you don't have kanang yes definite allotted score of your question. And then we have also, according to Popham, lack of objectivity reduces test validity in the same way that lack of reliability influences validity. So a while ago we have the objectivity. It's all about the scoring. This one class is the consistency and accuracy of test result. Okay. Of the types of reliability. Number one is the test retest reliability. So it is a measure obtained by administering the same test twice over a period of time to a group of individual. Okay, for example, class take a test of math ability and then retake the same test 2 months later. So if receiving a similar score both times, so meaning to say the reliability of the test is high. Okay? So if the you are going to take this test class in a different period of time, for example, kato siya 1 month after or 2 months after, then same ra gani ang imong score nga nakuha, meaning to say that your test is high in reliability. Letter B, we have the parallel forms in reliability. It's a measure obtained by administering different versions of an assessment tool. Both versions must contain items that prove the same construct, skill, knowledge base to the same group of individuals. So like for example, class, we have, if you want to evaluate the reliability of critical thinking assessment, so you might create a large set of items that all pertain to critical thinking and then randomly split the questions up into two sets, which would this one represent the parallel form. So the score from the two versions can be then correlated in order to evaluate the consistency of result across alternative version. Letter C is inter-rater reliability, as a measure used to assess the degree to which different judges or raters agree in their assessment decision. So it is very useful because human observers will not actually interpret answers the same way, mga good class. So that's why we are going to use different or additional raters of your output. Yes, like for example, class, if you have portfolio. So you are going to ask your colleagues to check or to interpret their output. So this is another also in checking the reliability of your test. We have letter D, internal consistency reliability. Is a measure used to evaluate the degree to which different test items of the same construct produce similar results. So, for example, class, if you create a quiz to measure students' ability to solve quadratic equations, you should be able to assume that if a student gets an item correct, he or she will also get other similar items correct. So this is what we call the internal consistency reliability. Here, the first subtype of interconsistency reliability. So number one is the average inter-item correlation. So what is this? So you are going to obtain by taking all the items on a test that prove the same construct. Like for example, class, we have the reading comprehension. So you are going to get the correlation coefficient for each pair items, then and finally taking the average of all these correlation coefficients. So this is the final stats yields the average inter-item correlation. So meaning to say, class, for example, in the reading comprehension, so you are going to kuhaon mo siya tanan, kung pila siya ka-items, dayon imuha dayon i-averaging. So this is what we call the average inter-item correlation. Second, we have the split half reliability. This began by splitting in half all items of a test that are intended to prove the same area of knowledge in order to form two sets of items. Okay, for example, class, are going to take like example a while ago, the comprehension skills. So, mag-create ka ana o questions, yeah, from 1 to 100, and then you are going to split that one into two sets. For example, there is a test one is the odd numbers, and then the second one is the even numbers. Then unsay buhaton nimo ana kato siya nga type tanang test that type 1 and type 2 tests, or A and B. So the entire test is administered to a group of individuals. So the total score of each set is computed, and finally the split half reliability is obtained by determining correlation of two total scores. I know, class, that you already learned your statistics subject on how to get the correlation of the of the data. So what you have learned in your statistics class, you can apply this one in getting the correlation of the two sets. So this is one way of knowing the reliability of your test. We have here the values coefficient 0 to 1.0. If the result of the coefficient is 0, meaning to say that is no reliability. If it is 1.0, that is perfect reliability. And then we have here the 0.80 and then 0.50. We have third qualities of good test instruments, that is validity. So it refers to the degree to which a test measures what it tends to measure. That is the usefulness of the test for a given measure. So a valid test is always reliable. So meaning to say, class, this validity will always go back to our learning objectives. So in making your assessment or test, it should be aligned to your learning objectives, because it will shows that um, you able to measure what really want to measure by your students. Types of validity. Number one, phase validity. it ascertains that the measure appears to be assessing the intended construct under the study. So this phase validity class, actually the question is not whether it measuring what it is supposed to measure, but whether it appears to measure what it is supposed to be measuring. So remember that it tells nothing what test actually measures, but how test takers perceive the attractiveness and appropriateness of a test. Okay, for example, we have the depression and optimism. So you are going to create a test about this one. So your item or your question is just like this. Do you feel sad or blue? Or do you generally expect good things to happen? So this kind of test mang good class is this face validity is important for some tests because if examinees are not interested or do not see the relevance of a particular test, they may not take it seriously or participate to the best of their abilities. So this is what we call the face validity. Number two, we have the construct validity used to ensure that the measure is actually measure of what it is intended to measure. That is construct and not other variables. What is construct are attributes that exist in the theoretical sense. Thus, they do not exist in either the literal or physical sense. Okay, for example, class we have in grammar and vocabulary. So, you're going to make an essay or multiple choice. And then we have for the reading. So, like, you are going to have a reading aloud or text and comprehension questions, right? And then for the listening, so you'll be having a lecture or series of dialogues. And if you want also to know the speaking of your student, the skills of your student, so you are going to have the reading aloud task or having a face-to-face interviews. So this is what we call the construct validity. Assessing construct validity, we have the item analysis to determine which items will be kept for the final version of a test. So it focuses both qualitative and quantitative issues. So after you create your objective assessment items and you give your test, how you can be sure that the items are appropriate. So not too difficult and not too easy. How will you know if the test effectively differentiates between students who do well and on the overall test and those who do not? So this item analysis is available and easy for the teacher to know if that questions will be retained or not. So this one class, the qualitative issues focuses to the content of the validity, and this quantitative is includes the measurement of item difficulty and item discrimination. Item difficulty measured in terms of the percentage of examinees who answer the item correctly. This percentage is referred to as the item difficulty index or denoted as a small letter p. So this item difficulty measure of the proportion of examinees who responded to an item correctly. Okay? Item discrimination refers to the degree to which items differentiate among examinees in terms of the characteristics being measured. Example, the high and the low score. So this item discrimination measure of how well the item discriminates between examinees who are knowledgeable in the content area and those who are not knowledgeable. So now class, after correlating the scores of the students, so the items with the highest test correlation with the total score are retained for the final version of the test. So we have another way of checking the validity. We have the discrimination index. Okay, so in our finals class, we are going to have this one. Mag-solve mo. Ato ning i-apply what we have discussed today in our finals. Criterion-related validity used to predict a future or current performance. It correlates test result with another criterion of interest. So it will measure how well one measure predicts one outcomes for another measure. So for example, class, you have an entry test. So from the result of your entry test class, it will give you an idea how this student perform in your class. So another example class is just like in the physics. If you give them tests about the physics and then these students have or got a good good score or higher score, so meaning to say class in the same discipline in chemistry or in sciences class, this student will also excel. Formative validity applied to outcomes assessment. It is used to assess how well a measure is able to provide information to help improve the program under study. So, formative validity class shows that a measure that improves a program assessment or theory. The idea is that a measuring tool should give you some useful formative information about the direction you want to take. So the result of this assessment class, it will give you information that improves what being assessed. For example, let's just say you were developing a rubric for assessing your mathematics student in this year. So your test, you find out that they are lacking skills in algebra. So that test has formative validity because it has the potential to improve your rubric. So you might want to give less emphasis on algebra testing and more emphasis on building basic algebra skills. So, mura na siya og imong tan-awon class ba kung unsay kulang nila ani nga skills, then pagka next na dayon mo siya imuhang i-focus na dayon para kung whatever skills nga ilahang kulang or dili sila maayo maoy imuhang ma-focus nga which is ma-develop nila kay mo man ilahang weakness. Okay? Number 5, we have sampling validity. This is similar to content validity. It ensures that the measure covers broad range of areas within the concept under the study. So not everything can be covered by so items need to be sampled from all of the domains. So, like for example, class in taking the board exam for the teachers. So, nag-review mo ani nga mga subjects, but not all that you reviewed baya kay manggawa siya. So, ang tawag ana niya is the sampling test or the sampling. Number 5, sampling validity. This is similar to content validity. It ensures that the measure covers a broad range of areas within the concept under study. So, not everything can be covered. So its items need to be sampled from all of the domains. So, just like happened class in the board exam, you're taking the board exam for the teacher. So, kanang inyuhang gipang review during sa inyuhang pag-take sa board exam, not everything is mugawas baya siya. So, katong mga question nga nagawas is just mora to siya mga sampled from that certain domain. So, how to improve the validity? So, make sure your goals and objectives are clearly defined and achievable. That's why it's a very important class that you have to know your objective so that you're able to create an assessment in line with your objective. Number 2, match your assessment measure to your goals and objectives. So, dapat mag-match gyud sila. Additionally, have the test reviewed by faculty of the other schools to obtain feedback from outside party. Yes, it's really important also class that you will going to ask questions or kana ang mga suggestion from your colleagues. Number 3, get students involved. Have the students look over the assessment for troublesome wording or other difficulties. So it is a very nice class that you have to be considered your student, no? Dapat gyud kay kana ang assessment is para baya gid sa ilaha.
The number four, if possible, compare your measure with other measures or data that may be available.
Quality and efficiency of assessment of student learning. So we need to know this one because, or so that we can able to address the certain issues in making the test uh, in relation to these important criteria. Okay, we have number one, the purpose and impact. So that's your assessment, or how will the assessment be used and how will it impact instruction and the selection of curriculum. So number two, validity and fairness. So does it measure what it tends to measure, or does it allow students to demonstrate both what they know and able to do? And the number three, we have reliability. Is the data that is collected reliable across applications within the classroom, school, and district? And number four, we have significance. Does it address content and skills that are valued by and reflect current thinking in the field? And number five, we have the efficiency. Is the method of assessment consistent with the time available in the classroom setting? So these are the important things that we should know so that we able to make a certain test that is really applicable, or we have it really give importance to the holistic development of our student. Ethics assessment. So in making tests and or collecting the result of the test, we need to have to be ethical. So by protecting safety, health, and welfare of all examinees. So it should be the kind of test that you have class. Dili siya mag-suffer sa ilahang safety or dili siya harmful sa iyahang health and sa iyahang welfare of your students. Okay? So number two, knowing about and behaving in compliance with the laws relevant to activities. So it should be in accordance to the law. No, like for example in the science, no, there are a lot of kuandra kana ang mga activities. So it should be in accordance with the law. So dili siya makadaot kay basin you are doing this kind of activities like mag-discovery mo din ha, and then without knowing that na di something nga makadaot or na mo explode ana, no? Okay, so you have to be knowledgeable enough about the activities that you want to have with your student. And the number three, maintain and improve competence in assessment. Of course, your assessment, it should be uh, in a in a good standards, and it really can give holistic or uh, development in different areas or different domain of your student. Number four, we have providing assessment services only in your area of expertise. And then we have number five, adhering to and promoting high standards of professional conduct within and between educational institutions. Number six, promoting the understanding of sound assessment practices. Okay, so you have to conduct or you have to make assessment or test that is something familiar or yeah, familiar sa mga student. Number seven, performing your professional responsibilities with honesty, integrity, due care, and fairness. Okay, so you decided to assess or to have a test with your student because you wanted to know if your student really learn something from you. Okay, dili kay you you have this kind of test because nasuko kay sa imong student or nasuko ka ning certain nga estudyante. Okay, so you have to be fair. Okay, so we always go back to our kaniyang objectives that we need to assess our student para unsa man to know if there is something to improve with your instruction or sa imuhang mga tools na ba siya kinahanglan nga idugang, and then to know also if your student learns something from you good. Okay? Five categories of assessment related activities. So we have here number one, crafting assessment procedures. So imong i-craft so that they are of high quality. Number two, choosing assessment procedures. Make sure they are appropriate. Number three, administering assessment procedures. So you are going to assure the administration process is fair and does not result in an interpretable results. Number four, scoring assessment results. So evaluate responses accurately and report them in a timely manner. And then number five, communicating assessment results, providing complete, useful, and correct information that will promote positive and minimize negative consequences. All tests are assessment, but not all assessment are tests. So, unsa man ni siya? So, meaning class that all the tests or the paper and pencil tests are assessment, but not all tests, not all assessment are tests. So, meaning that not all assessment are a test or a paper and pencil test. So, are the non-tests. So we have the oral and written reports, teacher observation, journal, portfolio, slate or hand signals, game projects, notes, models, cartooning, checklists, debates, and so on and so forth. So these are the not all assessments are tests. So this is also considered, even this is not a test or a paper and pencil test, but it is still considered as the assessment. Here other non-test instruments. Number one, the anecdotal records. So it is a written record kept in a positive tone of child's progress based on milestone particular to that child's social, emotional, physical, civic, and cognitive development. Actually, class, these anecdotal records is very important. It's because it is the basis of the next teacher of your student. So what kind of student he or she has. So, other school or especially in elementary class, they always have these anecdotal records because also it is basis if the mother or the parents of your student mo anha sa inyo ha if mag-ask og unsay mga likramo or how iyahang anak perform sa imuhang klase. And remember class that you cannot memorize all your students, especially if na kay 60 ka buok. So that's why this records is very important. Okay? Each of them, imo silang isulat kung unsa ni sila, kanaang especially ilang social, emotional, physical, and then in a cognitive development. We have the observation checklist. It is a listing of specific concepts, skills, process, or attitudes. It is designed to allow the observer to quickly record the presence or absence of specific qualities or understanding. So still, it is all about your student observation. Okay, so you're going just to observe your student if checklist ni siya yung i-check or na something ng mga kulang niya or maayos siya ani. Okay? So, actually class, this other non-test instrument, I will be posted the PDF on how to use this one so that you have to know also nga unsaon siya paggamit. So I did not put it here in my PowerPoint presentation para kay aron dili na pud mataas kaayo ni siya nga ako ang presentation dinhi. So just read that one so that namoy idea how to use this one. So in the future or a time will come mahimo na mong teacher gyud, so at least you have kanang information or dili na mo mabaguhan how to use this one. Okay? That's all for this afternoon and thank you for listening class. Goodbye.